It's June 23rd, and we're here in Farmersville with Mrs. Oleta House, and we are talking about her the history of her family and its connection to Frankfurt, and just other things too. So, can you just tell me again your name and who your family was and where you grew up?
My name was Oleta Wiley, and I grew up on White Rock Creek down in Collin County. I went to school at Hebron. We bought our groceries at Addison, and we went to Plano to buy our clothes. And let's see, what else did we do? And then I married in 1940 to Oleta House, and we lived in Dallas till 1989. And he wanted to come back home, so we moved up here.
And he was raised up here.
Yeah, he was raised. This was his home. He was raised up here. So we come back up here, and I've been here ever since. And then he died the 204, the 4th and the 4th, the 4th month and the 4th day, and 204.
Oh.
And he was 87 or 88, I forgot. We was born the same year in 1917.
Okay.
And he was born up here, and I was born in Oklahoma. And then when Daddy died, Mama come back down here and lived with her sisters and brothers. And in 1913, my grandma Hamer, Sarah Delilah Hamer, she was cook and she married a Hamer. She I asked Mama why did she leave her husband, and he was a drunkard. You know, back then men drank bad. And she said he drank, and said he run the oldest boy, Birch, away from home, wouldn't let him stay there. My grandmother said well, if her kids wouldn't stay there, she wouldn't either. So she loaded them all up. They's down at Cedar Hill on a train, and they came up to Dallas, and Grandpa Cook, Jacob Cook, he met her there and brought her up there, and he put her on this farm.
Oh.
And in 1913, Dan Hamer, her husband, come up and says, Lala, I come to kill you. And Aunt Mary got a hold of her and started off the porch, and as she stepped off the porch, he shot her, and she fell there, and then he shot himself. And he was buried at Plano. One of his cousins, I forgot who it was a Hamer, come and got him and buried him, and none of the children went to the funeral. And Grandma's funeral was preached at Frankford.
Oh.
And then she's buried there.
She's buried at Frankfurt.
Yeah.
And her name again is
Sarah Delilah.
Sarah Delilah.
And
Hamer.
that was 1913.
I want. We're sort of changing topics, but before we got set up, you were telling us this wonderful story about your ancestor that was captured by the Indians. Could you tell us that again? It was just a wonderful, wonderful story.
That
And
was what?
Who was it that was captured by the Indians? The young boy?
Well, that was,
You were just telling us about it.
let's see, the one that was captured.
It lived in Kentucky, was it, or Tennessee? Kentucky.
Oh,
We're talking about Illinois, but
But he was, that's where he went after.
let me think a minute. Let's see. John, he was the first one we knew about, and he was the one that was captured by the Indians.
okay.
And then,
Can you tell us more about that story, how that happened, and the Indian woman that helped him escape and all of?
well,
Yeah.
I don't know too much about it, only what I said.
Oh, well, I just wanted to hear it again because we didn't have the equipment set up then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. When John Cook was a little boy, the Indians kidnapped him, and they taken him and raised him till he got to be a teenager. And then he got to be a teenager, and then these Indian boys didn't like a white boy in their tribe, and they had planned to kill him. So this old Indian woman that raised him, she didn't want them to hurt him. So she got a hold of him, and she told him where they got him, and she stole a horse and told him to get on that horse at night and ride out of there. And he did, and he went back home. And that was in 1700. He was born in 1750 something. I forgot just when it was. But he went back home, and he married. I forgot the woman he married. It's in one of these books. And they had a son, Henry. And then he got a thinking of all this good land he's seen when he's with the Indians. So he got them to get up a wagon train and go back to this land. So they got up a wagon train, I think it's about 5 families, and they went back to Illinois. And they lived there until they come to Texas in 1840, I think it was, or 50.
So this Jacob was the father of the Henry that came to Texas.
She said his name
The
was
John.
John.
I'm sorry. John was the father of Henry
yeah.
that came to Texas later.
Was John still alive when they came to Texas? Did he come to Texas with them?
I don't know where he was or not.
He'd have
Okay.
been in his 90s, so
No.
it'd been a rough trip.
Yeah. Okay. Rosa, did you want to ask about the wells?
Yeah, you know, the windmill that's there at Frankford, oh, do you know what that was pumping? Was it pumping from a well or from a cistern?
I don't know. People would go down there and haul water, and I guess it's pumping. I guess the wind would blow it, you
Yeah.
know, and it would pump.
Well, was there a raised water tower for it, or was,
I don't know.
when it was pumping, did it pump water up into some storage thing?
It would pump water up, I guess, and they would put it in these old long tanks, you know, on a wagon,
Uh-huh.
and they'd take it home and put it in their wells.
Okay, so they were taking water from there
Yeah.
to take it to the homes. Okay.
Just like at Keller Springs.
Were they taking the water from the springs? Do you know much about the springs?
Yeah, I think it was this spring. They said it never went dry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you know that one of the things that we did in the last couple of years, we uncapped it. It had been capped off years ago after the town sort of, went away. And we found where they'd capped it off with an old piece of concrete, and we had it lifted off, and it's running again.
Well, good. It run all the time. They said it never went dry.
Was it pretty strong? Was it?
When I never did go down there, I just heard them talk about it.
Okay, so it never went dry.
No, it never went dry.
That's really good.
That's
So you think the windmill was on a well then, that people were using the windmill to fill tanks? Or how do you think they filled the wagons?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But they would take those wagons down there, those long tanks, and I guess they'd pump that water out some way or another. You know, the windmills used to do that. I know Grandpa Cook had one down there on the branch, and it would pump water up the house. But he had a
Storage tank?
yeah, he had a place out there, for it to pump, and then it would run down in the house.
Yeah, so he'd pump it up and then let it gravity feed
Yeah.
into the house. I wonder if there was a storage tank with that at one time.
At Frankford?
Yeah.
I
Or if they just used the windmill to fill tanks.
don't know.
Yeah. Was the windmill put there for the windmill actually did work and they used it to pump the water?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, did you spend a lot of time at Frankfurt, when you were a child, or?
We'd go down there and clean the graves off about 2 or 3 times a year.
Okay.
Aunt Mary would hitch up to the buggy, and we'd get in it, and we'd go down by Grandpa Cook's place and get Aunt Jo, and she'd go with us. And we'd go down and we'd clean off Grandma Hamer's grave, and then we'd clean off John Cook's grave, and then Henry Cook and Grandpa Cook. They had about 4 or 5 graves that they would clean off.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd go home, and Aunt Jo would usually go home with us and stay about a week or 2.
Oh.
And she and I'd go fishing down on White Rock Creek, or
Oh.
swimming. She loved the water,
Mm.
and I went swimming for her lots down on the creek.
Mm.
What area of White Rock Creek did y'all swim in?
Well, it was the Shepherd Ranch, and then after that it was our farm,
Mm-hmm.
and then after ours it was Henry Cook's farm.
Uh-huh. And that's where the creek was?
Yeah, the creek just come down
Or down through there?
all of that. Let's see, you got that picture over there, haven't you?
Which one?
With the map?
Oh,
I mean,
yes,
the one that
let's-
had the map on it?
where did I?
I bet it's in here.
Yeah. You're going to take it out and at some point we want a close-up of this. Okay.
See, this was a road that went to Hebron,
Uh-huh.
and this year was White Rock Creek. It went way up there, and it'd come on down. It goes down to Dallas and the White Rock Lake.
Yeah.
This is Frankford Church here, and this was McCamey land,
Mm-hmm.
and this was Jacob Cook's land, and this was McCamey's. And here's where Henry Cook lived, and Uncle John Cook, he lived over here. And Sam Miller lived here. His mother was a cook, I think it was.
Okay.
And then this road would go like this road, and then it'd go on up, and this was a Shepherd Ranch. It was 640 acres.
Mm.
And then this is a road that went to Hebron, and that was Liberty Church.
Okay.
And that was the Gregory House. And that was Sam Miller's. And that was the Eaton Farm, and here's where we lived.
Okay. And this is the house that you've drawn the picture of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this here's Frank Jackson's farm across the creek.
Okay. And the Shepherd Ranch, that was the mule, that they raised mules were there? Is that where they raised the mules? Or
Well,
were they for family? Do you remember that?
no, they just, let's see. Clint Shepherd had that,
Oh.
and he didn't take care of it. He just went to waste,
Oh.
and he finally lost it.
Uh-oh. Okay.
And up there right around here, there's a cemetery there, and I think they built over that and all. They was lots of people buried in there.
Do you remember the name of it?
No, I don't. But
Okay.
we used to go there, and you could see the tombs out there. And then when this old guy taken over the Shepherd Ranch, well, he just went in there and he just tore it all down. I forgot his name, but he had the Shepherd Ranch. He got it. I think Shepherd, he got a loan on it and he lost it. But that was 640 acres there in that ranch.
Wow.
And Eaton's lived there, and the Crawleys lived there. And up on the highway, they had a filling station over here, and let's see, it's over here. They had a filling station over there. That's been so long ago, it's hard for me to remember.
So by the time, going back to Frankfurt, by the time you were a girl, the town of Frankfurt was pretty much gone, right? I mean, because it had been a town at one time.
Yeah, but it wasn't any town when I was a girl.
Okay.
It was just a cemetery and a graveyard. Not a cemetery, but a church house and a graveyard.
Right.
And lots of people would go there and have their weddings. I know one of my granddaughters, she went there and was married. And my grandmother, Hamer, her funeral was preached there in this church.
That was in 1913.
Yeah, it was 1913.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of his cousins come and got him, and they buried him at Plano. And when I was 8 years old, they sold this land in South Carolina. That's where they was from. And Mom and them got some money, and we went over there to Plano Cemetery. And that's the first time they'd ever been to his cemetery, to his grave.
Oh.
And they showed them, where he was buried, and all the kids went in together and had a tomb put up. And then, about 10 years ago, I went over there, and his tomb had been knocked down, and I paid a guy money to put it back up, and I haven't been over there since.
That's probably Plano Mutual.
Huh?
Is that Plano Mutual?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should take a picture of it.
And he's buried over there, and
That would have been your grandfather then, is that right?
yeah, it was my
Uh-huh.
grandfather. But the kids, they was afraid of him. They didn't like him. He was mean to them.
Yeah.
Do you need some water? Can I get you some water?
I'm okay.
Okay.
Mama said the last words her daddy said was when he killed Grandma. He says, "Neil, if you don't shut up, I'm going to kill you." had some flowers. I was aiming to take those and put on the grave, and she told me that I'd throw them away. I couldn't take them.
Yeah.
Mm. Do you have more questions, Doc?
When they were taking water from the springs there, was there a well before the windmill went up, or did they dig a well when they put the windmill up?
I don't know. You know, they let me have that piece of paper,
Okay.
and let me have a pencil.
Here's a pen. Do you want one pencil? Or,
They get a peach tree, and they would cut it like that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'd have this. And they'd hold it in their hands like this, and they'd walk.
Uh-huh. It was a peach tree.
They call that switching, I think, for water.
Yeah.
And where that went down, that's where they dig.
You think that they dug a well there then?
I know they did that up there at our place.
Mm-hmm.
I think I asked you this question last time we talked to you, and I think you didn't know, but it's my understanding that the church, Frankford Church, was built by a man named Phil Hamer, who lived over in Renner. And was he related to you?
He was kin to my granddaddy. I think they's cousins.
Okay. So you knew who he was.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know anything about him? I understand he built the Coit home over in Renner.
No, I don't know
You don't
anything
know?
about him.
Okay.
Well, when we were here last time, you mentioned a story about your husband walking down the road when he was coming back from basketball practice, and a car stopped to pick him up.
Yeah, and that was Bonnie and Clyde.
Wow. Did he ride with him?
And he asked them, says, "Can I ride with you?" And they said, "Well, yeah." So he got in the car and said he got in the car and said it was covered with guns, the floorboard. Said he knew then who he was in the car with, you know, they was robbing everything up here.
Mm-hmm.
And when they went by his home, he told them, "This is where I live," so they stopped and let him out.
One of the projects I'm working on right now is a celebration of Colin McKinney's 250th birthday. And during the centennial, which would have been 36, they brought his house down from Anna to McKinney to use it as a visitor center for the centennial, and they put a marker on it. And there are pictures of that house coming down the road. And it burned down in the 80s, and we're going to try to raise some money and reconstruct it. Did your husband ever talk anything about the centennial and any of that sort of thing?
No,
in
I
Collin
never did
County?
hear him.
Do you remember anything about the centennial?
Centennial of Texas?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
136.
No, I don't.
I guess you would have probably been 18.
I think Dealey asked her that.
Right, I just didn't know
What
about
year was that?
1936.
Let's see, 1936. I was in Dallas taking a beauty course,
Oh.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have been up here.
and I guess that's the reason I
But all the
Yeah.
didn't hear anything about it.
celebrations, of course, were down in
They
Dallas.
used to have a log cabin out there
Mm-hmm.
somewheres. I don't know. I went to it. Seemed like it was by a graveyard or something.
That's the one.
Finch Park, which is near Pecan Grove.
Well, that's the log cabin that burned in 1980, and that was Colin McKinney's log cabin, and we have found the description of it, and we have pictures, and we're going to rebuild it.
Well, that'll be good.
That's a really neat project.
You were talking about cleaning off the graves at Frankford. You said you did it several times a year. But did you do it in May when they used to have Decoration Day?
We do it before Decoration Day.
Okay, but you would go to Decoration Day too?
Yeah, we go Decoration Day.
And I think we asked you this last time, but could you tell us again about your memories of Decoration Day? What did the women bring food and?
Yeah, they would bring food, and the men would fix a long table out there. And the women would bring tablecloths and put on that, then they'd put their food on it.
People show up for decoration?
Oh yeah, they'd be covered.
Okay.
Do you remember the big tree out behind the church? Was it there then? There's a big American elm tree right behind the church.
I remember trees being around it, but I don't know which was
Which one?
which.
Yeah, it would have been probably pretty small. It's straight out the back. When they made the tables, did they make them like out of planks and then take them apart afterward, or how did they?
I don't know, those men would usually fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they would take planks and fix it some way or another. You know, they'd have things they sawed wood on. They'd call them seesaws or something other. And they'd stack those and put these planks on it and fix their tables that way.
And do you remember them building something to cover the food, to protect it from the heat?
Like a brush arbor or something?
Well, I don't know. They get out there and fix it, and we go out there and eat.
Tell us, so there would be fried chicken and things like that? And did ladies bring, what were some of the things that they would bring?
Well, we usually have fried chicken or chicken and dressing, and they'd have cakes and pies, and they just cook stuff like you would at a home.
And the ladies would bring vegetables from the garden,
Yeah.
like green beans and, yeah.
And that table, it would be long and it would be full of food.
Was it one long table, or did they have one table for food and
No, it was just a long
one long
table.
table?
And where was it put?
It was put there on the south side of the church.
Okay. Along the side of it then?
Yeah,
And
they would go out through there.
And then, did you have tables set up for people how did people eat? Did they eat at tables or
On
just,
the
or
ground,
just
Like
sort
they
of
would just get it and eat.
like a picnic?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
and
And do you remember having a preacher come on Decoration Day and preaching and then doing singing in the church? Did you do
yeah,
that?
they'd have preaching, and then they would sing, you know, and then they'd have the dinner all ready, and we'd go out and eat.
Okay. So the service was.
And then after dinner, some of them would go back in and sing some, and some of us would go home.
And somebody played the old pump organ?
Yeah. Do they still have that?
Mm-hmm.
Kathy plays it.
Yeah.
She's the organist.
I was the organist for over 30 years, and
Well.
I still play it some. And we had it we had it worked on several years ago, and the man that worked on it, he's over in Garland. He and his father before him fixed. They fix up old organs. He says it's pretty special, and it's a fine instrument, or what it was for its day. So,
Well, that had been there ever since I can remember, you know.
so as far as you know, it was original to the church.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they would play that, and they'd get in there and sing, you know, and they'd have service down there, and we'd go down there sometimes.
Mhm.
But you know, that's been so long ago that, and I was just a little girl, I about forgot it.
Right. So they were, when you were a little girl, they were still sometimes having services, like when a preacher would come through, travel, be in the area.
Or they would, you know, preach funerals there. Or
Okay.
they'd get married there. Do they still get married there?
We still have weddings there. Yes.
Your niece.
Yes.
married?
Our niece our sister's daughter got married there several years ago.
Well,
Yeah, and it was very special.
well,
So,
my granddaughter got married there. Oh, several years ago. I don't know just when. She married and she divorced and then she married again, and she's lived with this man, and I hope she stays with him. She's got 2 little girls by him.
Okay.
Her name was Stacy Nicole House.
Okay.
Oh,
Do you remember who played the organ?
do I what?
Do you remember who the organist was when you were a little girl?
No. It was some lady, I know she would come there, you know,
Uh-huh.
but I don't know who it was.
Was wondering if it was Bertie Noel.
I don't know, it might have been.
Okay. I don't know if you've ever seen this book. This is a book that was written about Addison
No, I haven't seen
maybe
it.
15, 20 years ago, and I was looking through it and found some interesting information about people who were Frankford people, and one of them was this lady, Lavana Massey Cudd, and I noticed that the Cudd farm is on your map, and I didn't know if you knew anything about her. She was a midwife and apparently delivered over 900 babies, and she would go by horseback to the different farms. She's very Did you ever hear anything about her?
Well, now Aunt Annie could, that was Uncle Jim's, that was, let's see, there's Charlie and Charlie's daddy. He used to ride a horse all the time, but he died when I was just a little girl. And she would help people when they was sick, you know, and such as that. Now, I don't know where that was her. But
Okay.
they call her Aunt Annie, I believe.
Okay.
Was she your aunt, or was that just what they called her?
And that's what they call her. No, we wasn't kin to the Cudds.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean the McCameys.
Mhm.
Aunt Annie McCamey. I've heard Aunt Mary talk about her, how she would, you know, help folks when they was sick and all.
That's John L. McCamey's wife.
That was, I believe they called him Uncle Johnny.
Yes. Yes.
And they lived down there, you know, close to Frankford, in behind there on White Rock Creek.
Right. And she was a Simpson. She was Lionel Simpson's daughter.
I didn't know who she was.
Okay.
And she might have died before I was born. I don't know.
I don't have the dates.
I was
But,
born in 1917.
Um, did you, so you said, you shopped in Addison, right? Did you?
Yeah,
you
we
bought
go
things?
down there and buy our groceries. We buy
Okay.
them from, oh, what was his name? Well, I can't think of it.
Did you know the postmaster there, Edwin Lewis?
No, I didn't know him. Our postmaster was from McKinney,
Okay.
and I even forgot his name. That's been so long ago.
Okay.
You know, lots of those names has left me.
Mm.
Did you get a picture of this?
John,
I will get one, yes.
he's gonna get it in a minute. I'm just gonna look at this again.
Oh, you said that you remember people taking wagon loads of water from the springs. Do you ever remember 'em bringing water in and putting them like in a cistern or something like that at the springs?
No.
Okay. We may have a well there.
Have you ever been up here at back of the cemetery?
Yes. And you have, the Cooks are buried at Bacchus, aren't they?
Yeah. All the old ones are.
Mhm. Is this your drawing?
No,
No, that's from a
that
book
was in the library.
in the library. Okay. Mhm.
So you knew your great uncles?
I knew all my great uncles.
And they told you stories of when they were little?
Yeah. They call that the Lonesome House up there. This is a story about that house if you want to read it.
Can I take a look at it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is, which house is this? This is,
There's the one that Henry Cook built up here at Bacchus.
wow.
He got 700 and some odd acres up there when he come to Texas. And his boys, you know, lived around him.
Uh-huh.
So he got that land through Peter's Colony.
Yeah,
He was a Peters colonist.
he got it from that.
Mm-hmm. This is wonderful.
So now your great uncles, would they have been Henry Cook's?
Yeah, I had a
Children?
Henry Cook, and that was Jacob Cook's boy, and Henry had Kyle and Jewel and I can't remember their names, and Romaine, and they lived over there right behind us in a house.
So were they on the wagon train that came to Texas?
No, they was born here.
They were born here.
Yeah.
Okay. It would have been their parents that, or fathers.
That
came.
was their great grandpa, I think.
Okay.
See, a Henry Cook, and then John Cook, and then John Cook's boys. That was Henry and Wes, and let's see who was the other. Henry and Wes. Well, I
This is wonderful. I'd love to have a copy of this.
Well,
Yeah.
Take a picture, Kathy.
Can we take a picture of this? It's got some great information.
I've got lots of that in there that she got from the library, Gloria.
This is your cousin?
Yeah, she was Lillian's granddaughter, and Lillian Gallup was John's girl. And John, let's see, he was Jacob's boy. And Jacob was John's boy, and then John was Henry.
Yeah, a lot of times the names got reused, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. When they came to Texas with the wagon train, was that families he knew? That was Henry Cook that brought the wagon train down.
Yeah.
Did he bring people he knew with him? Was that like several families that he knew?
I think there was about 5 or 6 families come with him.
It mentions it right here. It says, Lieutenant Henry and Sarah Kincaid Cook left their home in Illinois 3 miles east of Greenfield, about 50 miles above Alton, Illinois, on September 1st, 1845 for Texas, arrived October 15th. There was a caravan of 7 wagons. Does that
7
sound right?
wagons.
7 wagons on the trip.
Mhm.
The Cook family had 3 wagons and one for the following families: John Nix, John McCann, Josh McCann, a married son of John McCann, and Bill Miller. And that's the Miller farm? Is that?
Yeah.
That's on there. Whose wife was a twin sister of Mrs. Josh McCann. Henry Miller married Mary Ann Cook, half-sister of Martha, Elizabeth, Rachel, Sarah, and Lewis Cook. The Cook family camped at Old Indian Springs,
Now I wonder where that was.
later the property of Tandy Haggard.
Well, you know, there's one of the Haggards married a cook.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've got that somewhere in there. I don't know.
Okay.
And he's seemed like he's buried up here at that cemetery. I never can think of it. Bacchus.
Okay.
But I know they used to have good horses, and that's where we got our horse that I rode to school, Old Bird.
Old Bird.
That was her name, Old Bird.
What was the name of your school?
It was Hebron.
Hebron, okay.
And you know, they tore it down. They done away with it. And now they built another one back there. I seen it on TV, and I think it's a big school.
Was yours a one-room school?
No, this had 2 buildings. Oh, the Cooks built 2 big rooms for school there. And they moved that to Hebron. That was over there, I think, in Cook's, one of them's pasture. And they moved that to Hebron. And then, I see they moved that one to Hebron. And shoot, everything's just leaving me. And then they moved that to Hebron. And then they built a big brick school. And it had classrooms downstairs, and it had an auditorium up in top. Now that's one I went to school in.
Okay.
And I know our principal was Mr. Davis. And he told us about Brigham Young. Is any of y'all belong to that church?
No. No.
Said that Brigham Young was going down the street one day and he met a beautiful girl and he proposed to her. And she says, "Well, you're my daddy."
Oh, no.
And then you know he went on to Utah
Right.
and he built a church over there. And now then, they come up here and then Farmersville and build a church.
Oh, really?
They call them the Seventh-day Adventists or something other.
Or was it the?
And they come here the other day wanting me to come to church, you know,
Uh-huh.
their church. I told them, I said, listen, I'm Baptist all the way, and you or nobody else can change me.
Mm.
Now, Frankford was Methodist, wasn't it?
Frankford was Methodist. It was on the Methodist circuit. So when it was built, the circuit riders were still going through. But I understand that it was so far out in the country that whatever, preacher was in the area would preach there.
Yeah.
Baptist preachers or Presbyterian or, does that sound right? It was pretty far out in those days.
Yeah, it was.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
well, it's been lots of water run on the bridge since that church was built.
Mhm.
Well, speaking of the bridge, when you all came down from Hebron to Frankfurt, I guess you came down and went over the bridge, over.
Yeah, we come over that bridge.
Mm-hmm. And it was just planks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, up above there was this spring. And in this creek, it come on down and it went around the cemetery down on the south side. And it does that today, don't it?
Mm-hmm. Did you ever play in the creek?
No, I never did play in that creek.
Do you remember seeing watercress that grew around the springs?
No, I never was up there around that spring.
Okay. 'Cause-
We just come over that bridge, and come on down the cemetery.
Okay.
Could you see the spring from the bridge?
No, I never did. I knew it was up there, but I never did try to see it.
So it was up the creek a little ways.
Yeah.
There are probably several
We
places.
call that a branch. We didn't
That's
call
fine.
it a creek.
Yeah. In fact, I think it's called Hall's Branch.
Did
now.
you hear it called Hall's Branch?
Called what?
Hall's Branch, Hall.
No.
Well, that's what I've heard it called, and I think it was because it was the branch that served the needs of the hall, the Masonic Lodge that was there.
Yeah, the Masonic Lodge used to be there.
Now, by the time you were a little girl, it had already moved on to Addison.
Yeah. I
It was
think
moved
so.
back there in 1907.
I've got that in there somewhere, the Masonic Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
And who was, well, I think y'all taken a copy of that the last time.
Probably.
Do you remember, back to Decoration Day, do you remember when they were doing the singing? Did they have hymnals, or did everybody remember the songs?
Did they have what?
The hymnals, hymn books?
Yeah, they had hymn books and they'd sing. And I remember one day, I was just a little girl, and I went there, and they was a crowd in there, and I had sat in my mama's lap. I don't think I was even going to school then, and these two girls sitting over me, and they got a looking at me and a laughing while I made a face at them. Well, they made a face at me, and we sat there all year service making faces at each other.
Who were some of the other people that you remember
Well,
being at
I
Frankfurt Church?
remember Marvin Russell and Lena
Mm-hmm.
would come over there, and lots of them down there at Addison, I forgot their names.
Marvin was supposed to be a very nice man. We interviewed his daughter, Betty Jo,
And Tyler.
and Tyler. I don't know if you, she's a little younger than you, but he had a daughter named Betty Jo, and we've talked to her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he had a daughter, and I didn't remember her name. I had an uncle that worked with it for him some,
Mhm.
and I know I went over there once or twice with him, you know.
Mhm.
And he lived across the creek over there. Seemed like that was Dr. Mitchell's farm or something he lived on.
Well, he did a lot of work for the McCameys, I think.
Yeah,
Okay. Did you know the Nance family?
yeah, I knew them. They used to come up and pick cotton for us. Hope Nance and his boys,
Uh-huh.
and we used to go down there and buy groceries at Addison from him.
Oh, he had a store.
Yeah, he had a store, him and his daddy did, and then after his daddy died, well, he lost the store.
Okay.
I don't know where he sold it or he lost it or what, you know. I was back in that depression,
Mhm.
and things got rough then. Cotton was 5 cents a pound.
Wow.
My.
You have to pick a long time to get it too.
And we'd pick that cotton and take down there, and you'd get about $30 or $40 for a bale of cotton.
Mm.
And it was rough.
Well, were you on a farm during the Depression? Were you on a farm during the Depression?
Yeah,
Did y'all raise most of your food, or?
we lived there till I left in 30s and went to Dallas and I've taken a beauty course.
Mm-hmm.
And in 40, I got married. And then I worked in that for a while, and then I quit, and I went to making books at Taylor Publishing Company in Dallas.
Oh.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
What did you do?
I put the pictures in there.
For like the
You know,
School.
they give us a long, it was 8 pages of film. It's just one long piece. And we take these pictures, they was in natives, you know, and we put them in there, and if they didn't fit, we'd
Arrange them?
we would send it back and have it shot bigger, you know,
Uh-huh.
or smaller. And I got some of those here. Did you buy any of those? Boys.
Aha.
wow.
Let's see,
Wow.
what year was that?
1981.
Yeah.
So this was your career you did this a long time.
Yeah, I did
Okay.
that for 17 years.
Okay. But you said you took a beauty course earlier, so did you?
Yeah. I taken that along about 30, I was there in 39.
Okay.
And you take them 6 months, you know, to take it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then did you work in that?
Yeah, I worked in a beauty shop for a long time, and you know, back then shampoo and sets was a quarter. You couldn't make anything.
Yeah.
And I quit, and I went to this bookstore, and I made that.
Mhm.
So this is one you made.
Wow. And this was down in Dallas. then.
Yeah.
Yeah. This because you lived in Dallas then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I lived in Oak Cliff.
Okay.
That's part of Dallas.
Whereabouts in Oak Cliff? Where did you live in Oak Cliff?
Well, let's see. I moved there in 1940. That's when let's see, I I guess I went there in 39. And then I got married in 40. I met Walter. He's down there taking a business course and I was taking a beauty course.
And what school was that?
I went to Nielsen's Beauty School over on the Jefferson,
Okay.
It's in Oak Cliff.
and there's quite a few there.
Mm.
And see, I'd take these pictures, and I'd put them, I'd take the film and put them in these places, and then they would take and print it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember any of these. And then they had the girls, you know, that danced for 'em.
Yeah.
But I worked there for 17 years, and then when I retired at 65, I left that.
Is that when you started your artwork, or had you started that earlier?
Yeah. I started my artwork, my son, he went over there and he taken it and he didn't like it. And then they was about 3 or 4 of us women started going to Grand Prairie taking artwork,
Uh-huh.
and that's when I was taking it.
Okay.
We take it $1 a lesson
And when was this you started taking?
at Grand Prairie.
After you retired.
When you retired?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I think you studied well. I really like your drawings.
And you said that you didn't draw or paint when you were a child at all.
No, I would paint with colors, you know. But
Yeah.
that was all.
Yeah.
So,
Did you paint these plates that are on the wall?
no, I didn't paint any of those. I bought all those.
That last painting you did in there, was that a scene you knew? Was that somewhere around here, or?
No, that was an old picture I had, and it was just, you know, gone. It was
Uh-huh.
decaying.
Uh-huh.
And I taken that, my granddaughter got me that big frame,
Uh-huh.
and I painted it and put it up there.
Oh, okay. Well, that's an interesting wagon you have in there. I was just wondering if you knew anything about that wagon or where it was from.
No, I just painted it, I copied it from that.
Uh-huh.
You have wonderful information in here.
Yeah,
It's really great. I see some interesting letters.
she went to the library and got all that, you know. My great uncles and all, I knew all of them, and I got the history on them down to you know, my family.
Mm-hmm.
And then she got all that back. And her name was Gloria something other, I don't even remember, but she was Lillian Gallup's granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where she was. She was Alla Mae's daughter, I believe.
Well,
Alla Mae was Lillian's girl.
There are Gallups in the cemetery, and I think there was a Gallup store in Addison. Wasn't there? Or do you know?
Well, he had a filling station there.
Oh, did he?
West Gallup did.
Okay.
And then he died in
Well, this has been just wonderful getting
Well,
to visit with you again. And we really appreciate your letting us come into your home and ask you all these questions.
Well, you're just welcome. I'm glad I could help you.
Well,
I've really enjoyed getting to know you also.
Well, I
Very
really
much.
enjoyed knowing you too. And what did you say your name was?
It's Rosa Finsley. It used to be Clark. There were a bunch of Clarks up in this part of the
Yeah,
country.
we have a Charlie Clark,
Mm-hmm.
and he married, see, his daughter Mildred Clark married Kyle Cook.
Really?
mhm.
And then they have a son, Louise, and she lives down here at Garland or somewhere.
Richardson,
Richardson.
Louise Simmons now.
Yeah, Louise Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
My dad used to talk about an Uncle Charlie. I don't know if it's the same one or not. And
Well-
he had an Uncle Jim. But they lived up near Whitesboro, Sadler, in that area.
Well, he lived down there on Aunt Joe's place a long time.
Uh-huh.
And I know Mom and I, we cook at Uncle Henry's Thrasher,
Uh-huh.
and we'd ride out on a wagon with him.
I bet that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us about the thrasher. Would people,
Well, Uncle Henry'd have this thrasher, and then he'd have about 5 or 6 bundle wagons. They'd go out and pick up this grain and put it on the wagon, and it would be real full. And then they'd go up to the thrasher and they'd throw it in the thrasher, and it would thrash that grain and then
Mhm.
make a haystack.
Mm-hmm.
And then the grain would go in a wagon, and they'd take that and put it in our granary, you know.
Mm-hmm. Did a lot of neighbors come in to help when they were doing that?
Well, no, usually, you know, they had boys,
Yeah, but
Around
that's
that.
what big families were for.
and the boys are at home would help. And so that was the thrasher.
Mm-hmm.
And that would come around, they'd come around and cut our grain, and then we'd go out and shock it, you know, we'd put it in shocks, and they'd leave it there about 2 weeks till it got good and dry, and then the thrasher'd come, and they'd go out there and they'd pick all that up and put it in the wagon, and then they'd take it to the thrasher and thrash it,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'd take that and put it in our granary or
Yeah.
sell it.
Yeah, that'd be your winter
Yeah.
feed. Huh? Was it oats or wheat?
Well, we had both,
Both,
oats
uh-huh.
and wheat.
Yeah.
We usually had oats.
so where did you take it to sell it?
I don't know, I think they'd taken it to Dallas or somewhere and sold it. And that was a long time ago. And now then, that's all buildings out there, there are no farms there. I go out there, I can't even find where we live.
Right.
And you know, because that whole area has changed so much, we're trying really hard at Frankford. We have less than 11 acres there. But when you get into the Frankford site where the church is and the cemetery, it's pretty much like it was a long time ago. And we're really working hard to keep it that way. Because we think you need little places like that that really are what North Texas looked like years ago. And
Yeah.
so we're really working hard to preserve it and protect it.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good you're doing that.
Yeah.
But it has really changed. And over here, on the other side of McKinney, that's all big fine homes, and it used to be farmland all down in there.
Mm-hmm.
And good farmland too.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's still a lot of farmland around Farmersville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, they don't even have a gin here anymore, and they used to have one.
Oh, really?
And
Yeah.
they don't have, it's not like it used to be.
Well, thank you again for letting us come. It's about lunchtime. We don't want to interrupt your lunch, and
Well,
we hope we haven't tired you.
you haven't. I've enjoyed you.